Hello everyone and welcome to another safety training video from the Morning Safety Briefs video series. I am Dr. George, thank you for joining me. Today is Monday, March 12, 2012. Today, we will begin our discussion on how to develop and implement a family disaster emergency plan. Remember, last week I said that a disaster may occur at any time and anywhere. If you want to protect your family from potential disaster situation, your family must be prepared at all times to safely confront the situation. How you survive the disaster will depend on how well you developed your emergency plan and when you initiate your action plan to address the potential emergency. It is important for you to recognize that this is not only your job. Emergency planning is a family project. Everyone in your family needs to understand the plan, learn their role and tasks assigned to them, and be ready to implement it, should the need arises. From the initial development to full implementation, practicing this plan is probably one of the most important aspects of any emergency plan. Since a disaster emergency plan will incorporate different sections and discuss many potential disaster prevention elements, this entire presentation will be divided in several video training segments. We will try to address each segment or section separately. We hope to make the entire process easier to understand and to complete. You are also encouraged to visit the FEMA website for more information. Okay, let's get started with our first topic: disaster awareness. You know, as I mentioned earlier, we are all prone to experience a potential major disaster in our lifetime. Disasters come in different forms and sizes. Quite often, we don't hear about a disaster until hours have passed. The good news is that most of us are able to obtain news from all around the world within seconds of something major occurring. Through modern technology, today we are able to communicate in real time from one part of the world to the other in seconds. The first task, or element that every emergency action plan must implement, is the communications component. How we obtain the information and how we distribute that information to everyone else in our family and other team members will determine the success of the action plan. There are many forms of communication devices that may play a vital role during a disaster response situation. Depending on your budget and family needs, the right communication device needs to be practical and provide the basic functions for your family safety plan. Obviously, a portable radio is important. You should always have an electrical and battery-operated radio. Since the electricity may go out, you want to have plenty of extra batteries on hand to stay informed of the current news, weather reports, or whatever is happening outside your community. Remember, there are many different types of radios on the market. You want to have a radio that receives the National Weather Service broadcast 24 hours a day. These type of radios, known as weather radios, come in different types and sizes, but most of them will perform the same function, so just make sure that it can provide you with 24 hours weather advisories from the National Weather Service. Another form of communication device that you may consider having will be a two-way radio or a set of walkie-talkies. These devices will be useful if your family needs to temporarily separate. You must remember that during some disasters, radio antennas may not be available, so if possible, take this factor under consideration when purchasing two-way radios. With today's technology, there are satellite radios and telephones that are available to the general public, but these items are pricey. Once you have settled on the right communication device, make sure everyone in the family learns how to use them. Everyone needs to be able to change the batteries and maintain the device in operation. The next step you want to take into consideration when developing your disaster emergency plan is to determine what type of disasters may potentially affect your family in the area you currently live. This is important because you may be living in an area that may not be affected by certain type of natural disasters. Making a plan for it may be counterproductive at this time, so you want to skip it for now. For instance, while it may potentially happen, the chances for a long-term freeze and severe snowstorm to happen in South Florida, it's almost impossible. While we could potentially come up with several scenarios that this may happen, the entire event is unrealistic. Therefore, why would you write a plan now? Don't take me wrong, You may eventually write a disaster plan that would incorporate this disaster event, but not right now. Ask yourself the following question. What type of disaster could I potentially see here in my community? Please, remember that I don't just mean natural disasters, but a man-made disaster as well. In general, the disaster emergency plan needs to address each disaster that could potentially affect your family at any given time. Of course, we know that some communities are more prone to certain disasters than others, but that's why you want to be realistic and consider those that you believe may directly affect your family. If you are not sure the type of disaster your community could potentially see, ask the local emergency management office or your American Red Cross. Of course, there are certain facts you want to know. They are, which disaster are you more likely to see in your community? Again, I don't only refer to natural disasters, but man-made causes as well. I always remember about the chemical plant a block away, or the railroad tracks behind your facility, or the diesel fuel plant down the street. Do you understand what I am asking? You may want to drive around your neighborhood and look around to really see what's out there. Sometimes, you may be surprised to find out what is close to you that you didn't even know it existed in your neighborhood. Anyway, you want to write an action plan that addresses each one of the potential hazardous situations that you may encounter in your community. The clearer, the more concise the plan is, the easier it will be for your family to practice and implement, should the need arise. Other questions you may ask your local officials are, does your community have an emergency warning alarm system? Does your community have a local emergency shelter available for people with disabilities or chronic illnesses? Are there animal shelters available to take your pets? Ask if the shelter will have medical care available. Overall, you want to know what you and your family will need to do if you are required to implement an emergency plan. What will you need to do if you need to evacuate your home? And finally, where do you need to go if you need medical assistance for an emergency situation? Well, that's all we will cover in today's discussion. We will continue tomorrow, so please join us. Well, I hope I was able to provide you with valuable information about preparing a disaster emergency plan. Don't forget to join me tomorrow for more information of emergency planning. I certainly hope and pray